Welcome back. Central to this peace deal, as we've been saying, is the involvement of the international community, in particular the United Nations. The problem is the UN's previous involvement in Somalia, which has been, at best, patchy. It started in 1993, replacing a year-old US-led mission called Operation Restore Hope. But neither the US nor the UN could do that. By 1995, the UN was forced to withdraw troops after sustaining heavy casualties in the escalating violence. For the next 10 years, there was a hiatus in the UN's participation in Somalia. It wasn't until 2005, when the exiled Somali government returned from Kenya, that the UN started to get involved again. First in 2006, the Security Council voted to create a regional force to support the government, and in 2007 it agreed to extend the African Union's peacekeeping mission. But with the rejection of this latest US-brokered ceasefire, serious questions have now been raised about just how effective the UN can really be in such a divided country. Joining us again, our guests in Nairobi, Mohamed Ali Noor, in London, Mohamed Gur, and on the line from Asmara in Eritrea, Zakaria Mohamed Haj Abdi. Gentlemen, thanks for staying with us. I'm going to go back to London, speak to Mohamed Gur there. We've been outlining there the UN's role here, and you already made the point about whether this 120 days is really a realistic time frame. I've also read comments of yours which said you've been saddened by the lack of response from the international community in the past. What makes you think they're going to react any differently now after 17 years of chaos in the country?
Well, if you remember back in January 2007, when after the Ethiopian forces, entered Somalia, there was the African Union passed a resolution which was sending with the UN sending 8,000 strong troops to Somalia to replace the Ethiopians. It never happened. So now the fear is there. As I said, the international community, spearheaded by the United States and the EU, do not act quickly and show with good faith that they mean what they said and they are behind this, then we will have problems because people will not believe it. The Somali people have a lot of distrust for the United Nations, as you have said. So many times that Somalis sign agreements, but so many times after the agreement is the United Nations abandons and the international community abandoned the Somali people and left them to their demise.
Okay, so let's put that then. Let's put that then to Mohamed Ali Noor.
Is it again the same thing?
Let's put that to Mohamed Ali Noor, the Somali ambassador to Kenya, who's in Nairobi for us. You've heard a lot of, I guess, I've used this word before, accusations already about what the Somali government is going to do, what the UN is going to do. Tell me about your confidence that this will work. This 120-day period is very, very tight.
I think I'm very optimistic that it will happen, and also I think there's a point worthy to make that the Ethiopian troops actually were invited by the TFG government in Somalia, and the agreement was that they will go back as soon as African peacekeeping forces will come, which never happened. We have Ugandan and Burundi forces, and we are appreciative, but we believe that the Ethiopian troops will go back as soon as the UN peacekeeping forces come. The other point I want to make is that we have to respect the Somali people who are suffering. And we cannot, every time when we sign an agreement, saying that there's this group now, the ARS group, or who are in Djibouti, who was led by the chairman, Sheikh Sharif Ahmed, was there. And now it's not, I don't think that it's good that I'm hearing from Zakaria say that they don't agree with him when he signed a peace agreement. The other point that I want to make also is that Somalia is tired of instability. Somalia wants peace. We want to bring humanitarian aid to the people. The government is very committed. That shows that the president went to Djibouti. The prime minister was there at the signing ceremony. We had a big delegation, and this, I think, the majority of the people agree with it, and I'm very, very optimistic that it will succeed.
And are you sure also and optimistic that the interim government will survive the Ethiopians leaving? Because there are many who say that it's the Ethiopians who are really propping up the interim government.
I think also another point is that the UN Security Council came to Djibouti to show how important Somalia is, to show that they want to really support us in bringing UN peacekeeping forces. And I said the Ethiopian group, the Ethiopian troops wanted to go back yesterday, but the TFG doesn't want to have a vacuum left in Somalia. That's why we were asking, that's why our president went to New York and asked the UN Security Council to have UN peacekeeping force to Somalia as soon as possible, so that the Ethiopian forces can go back to the country.
Okay, let's go back to Zakaria Mohammed HABDU, who's on the line for us from Eritrea. Obviously, your main concern, as you've highlighted earlier, is the presence of Ethiopia in the country. Let's look ahead. Let's say that something does happen here. Let's say that the UN forces do get in and that the Ethiopian forces leave. Will you be willing to cooperate and work with the UN peacekeepers there, or will you still be, if I could use this word, hostile towards them because they are, as you might say, occupying the country?
Let me first assert, I don't see any hope and there is no wagon to board on, as my friend Gura sees. You have said rightly, there is a historical document, there is a documentation of the UN failures in Somalia. I think this is yet another conspiracy. UN was part of the occupation. You know, when the Ethiopian troops invaded Somalia 2006, the United Nations have, up to now, they haven't said anything. The atrocities that the Ethiopian forces, the Ethiopian occupation forces have committed, the UN haven't said anything, while the international organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have documented numerous human rights abuse, numerous genocide and war crimes have been committed, even at the level of the European Parliament. Now, I mean, UN cannot turn overnight into an angel and save the Somali people from the atrocities and the occupation of the Ethiopians. In another assertion is that there is no so-called transitional federal government. The moment that the Ethiopian troops have entered into Somalia and they have surrendered the sovereignty and the independence of the Somali people in the hands of the enemy, the TFG is over. Therefore, what we are talking here, there is no Somali conflict now in Somalia. This is a diversion, and actually, from the reality, the diversion from the reality, from the part of the United Nations. If they were genuine reconciliation, they should talk about the occupation and the pull out of the Ethiopian occupation from the soil of Somalia.
Okay, then we are going to have to leave it there. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, but we have run out of time. Zakaria Mohammed HABDU on the line from Eritrea. Also, Mohammed Ali Noor in Nairobi and Mohammed Gur in London. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and thank you, our viewer, for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Goodbye for now.